Hi everyone, this is Usha Pandit, your Mind Springs English teacher. Today I am doing a topic called content to skills. English, unfortunately, has become a content subject in many schools and examinations. Content means we are treating it like it's geography or history, and we are asking questions on the content, on the story, as if the story is the most important thing. But let me tell you, the story is not important. It's important as a part of literature where you say you want to kind of talk about the character or the plot or the situation. But otherwise, the story has absolutely no role to play in learning English. Okay? Very little. Not no role, very little role. Today I am going to talk to you about how we can move English from content to skills. English is a skills subject. What do we mean by that? Remember those 4 letters LSRW, which means listening, speaking, reading, writing. And that is the order that we follow when we talk about skills. To learn any language, the first skill that we need is listening. So when you're born, you're listening to language all around you. You can't speak, but you're listening to language. Probably you can't understand, but you're listening to language. So that listening is a very, very important part of language learning. Because all of us pick up our mother tongues by listening. We must follow nature when it comes to language learning, because then it will be easy, effortless and very, very successful. Just as Mother Nature is. All 2-year-olds across the world, whether you're learning Mandarin or you're learning Portuguese or you're learning Malayalam, you will find that they pick up their language by the time they are 1.5 years or 2, without a teacher, without even educated parents. Follow nature. Listening is the way to go. Now, what do we mean by listening? When we talk of listening as a skill, one of the things we need to introduce into our schools is a listening exam, a listening period. We need to have something to do with listening, where you listen and you are able to exercise certain skills. So, what does listening entail? What does it have? Let's take a look at that. First of all, let me talk to you also about the 2 in black, which I have called receptive skills. Receptive means you receive it from somebody else. Listening is not something I can do by myself. I need to listen to somebody else. The voice needs to come to me and then I need to make meaning out of it. So, it's a receptive skill. Similarly, reading. Somebody has written something and I am receiving what that person has written. I have no control over what that person has written, because if it's not written, how do I read it, right? So, reading is again a receptive skill. Speaking and writing are generative skills, which means I generate language. So, I can be very poor in English and I can still read Charles Dickens, right? If I can read, then I can read Charles Dickens. But that doesn't make me anywhere near Dickens, because it's a receptive skill. So, you can read very high material, listen to a lot of high material without you yourself being very, very competent. It's not like that when it comes to speaking and writing. You have to be very competent in order to speak. There are people who never learn to speak, although they might be able to read a lot. They may read a lot, they may still not be able to speak as much as they want to, or they may not be able to write very well. They may speak very well and not be able to write very well, because all these skills have got different brain centers that function together. Okay. So, let's come to listening. Let's just start with listening. So, as a receptive skill, I just wanted to tell you generative, because you generate the language. If you don't know the language, your reading, your speaking and writing are both going to be poor, because you have to generate it. Nobody else has done it for you. Just basic difference you need to remember. So, never play with the generative skills. because they won't happen at a later stage. So when we talk of listening, what do we mean? We mean one is just hearing. So hearing, I have absolutely no control. If someone makes a loud noise, then I'll hear. But that is not listening. Listening is where the mind comes into play. So when I listen, when I say I'm listening, it means I'm paying attention. So attention is a very big component of listening. I think I should write that, attention. Hearing with attention. Okay? Then comes comprehension. So I may also listen with a lot of interest, but do I understand what is being spoken? Do I understand what you are saying? That is where comprehension comes into play. Now a small child, no matter what you say to that child, the child will believe everything you say because the child is using surface meaning. Whatever you have said, the child has completely believed, understood it to be true, surface meaning, and later on we start inferring. We start, as we grow up and mature, we start inferring. When we listen, we start thinking about what is his intention. Even children do it. If you talk to them about something that they very badly want, like maybe a slice of cake, if you say, I'll take the bigger piece, they have listened to you and they have understood that you want a piece. They don't have a problem with the piece, but they have a problem with the bigger piece. So they have started reading intention. When we grow up, we start listening to the intentions of people. We start looking at the mood. We start looking at the tone. We start looking at whether they are being sarcastic or whether they are being sincere. Lots of little things come into play with the listening. So the listening becomes more sophisticated. We look at key ideas. Now, if we are listening to a big speech, if we are listening to a presentation, if we are gone for a conference and we are making notes because we are listening to somebody, then we are looking at what are the key ideas, what are the key takeaways. We are looking at what are the supporting frills. And sometimes we'll say, he was boring. Now, why was he boring? Because he didn't stick to the key ideas. He had so many frills. He gave too many examples. Or his mind diverted into something else. He got distracted. So we'll say it wasn't a very good experience. So we have started now sifting out what are the frills and what are the key ideas. And finally, we summarize the listening and we put it down into the main takeaways. So when you come back to your boss, you tell him there were 5 points that were made and this is what I think. I think it was a good conference. I don't think it was very useful or whatever. You make an evaluation. So you summarize and you evaluate. So today I want to show you how all these 4 skills are connected. That's why I put them on the board. You'll find that in all these places, you'll find the same words, which means all these skills are connected. After listening, we are going to speaking. So I put these 1 and 2. The next step is not reading. What is the mistake we make in the pre-primary classes? We start reading. We don't do much listening at all and we start writing. See, what are you doing? You're coming to the 3rd and 4th skill without doing the 1st and 2nd skill. That is the problem with the language acquisition and that is why students don't pick up the language. Now, when you come to the speaking, you are generating. So, what do you need? You need structure. That means you need grammatical sentences. So, speaking means I have to speak. My tongue has to move when I speak. If my tongue doesn't move, then the tongue which has a memory is handicapped. So, although I have listened to it, I will not be able to speak because my tongue has no memory of those words. So, for speaking, it's very important to actually speak. You can sing a song, you can play a game, but you have to say something with using your tongue. This is very important. for speaking. So, grammar, you need ideas. So, if I have to talk, I need an idea, I need a necessity otherwise. So, I need to say, may I please have your pencil, or may I would like to have some more cake. I need to say something, right? I need to have an idea. So, ideas are important, and more importantly, you need vocabulary. Otherwise, how will you say something? I want the cake, but I don't know the word for cake. I don't know that word. Then how do I ask? So, I become handicapped. So, vocabulary becomes an extremely important part of speaking. These are the three parts: structure, ideas, vocabulary. When you speak, you need all those three. Okay? Then, you need to, for speaking, you need to think. Now, when I am speaking, I need to think and say something. If I say the wrong thing, not only will I not get it, I might even get punished. So, thinking is a very important part of speaking. And then, of course, as we go on, you will have all this tone, pitch, volume. Depending upon the volume in which you speak, you will find that people get annoyed, people get offended. They say, why are you shouting? Or your pitch can be irritating, your tone can be offensive. Many things come into play there for speaking. So, speaking is not such a simple skill. There again, you will find, like we found in listening, you will find all these various little things that come and play into the speaking, where you might be sarcastic, you might be offensive, etc. There is a psychology of influence. Now, when I am speaking to you, I want to get something from you, maybe. Or maybe I want to inspire you, maybe I want to provoke you in some way into some action. So, there is a reason, a psychology. So, the way I use my words, the way I use my body language. Body language can be threatening, body language can be cajoling. How do people come and ask you for votes? With hands folded, with bodies bent, don't they? With nice words like please, saying that you are our Janta Janardhan, don't they do that? So, the speech and the actions and the body language is all meant to make you give them something. That's what it is. Psychology of speech. You will look at your audience. Who are you speaking to? What do you want out of these people? Now, you cannot use very high-flying language if you are going to a bunch of villagers. You will have to speak in their idiom. You will have to speak in their language. Then they'll feel bonded, they'll feel attached to you, they'll feel emotionally involved. So, there is an emotion here in speech that you must be careful about. There is also a reason. So, you can reason with people or you can be emotional in a speech. Two things. So, I can cry and ask you for something, or I can tell you why it's good for you to give it to me. So, two bits there. So, this is your speaking, your generating language, and you're slowly learning to become independent in this language and acquire it. Okay? So, when you teach, when you learn, remember these two processes and what it entails. That is very important. Otherwise, we'll just be doing some books and doing question answers and going away, and our language will remain handicapped or crippled even. The third skill is reading, a receptive skill, right? So, when I say reading, it does not mean that you don't do any reading until you finish speaking. It's not like that. You do them simultaneously, but you need to remember that lots of listening in the initial stage and also at the later stage in order to understand the sophistication of listening, and lots of speaking from the beginning till the end. You need to speak, because the more you speak, the better you become. And of course, simultaneously, you will also do a bit of reading. But reading is third place compared to these two skills. What do we have in reading? First thing is decoding. A lot of schools that teach you to read are concerned with the business of decoding. Decoding means when I see C-A-T, I can put those words together, those sounds together, the sounds of those letters together and say cat. This is how I read. It's called decoding. Decoding is something that some children pick up very quickly. So you will find by the time they are 4 years old or 5 years old, they can read the newspaper. Because once you learn the process of decoding, it's a pattern. Once you catch the pattern, you can read anything under the sun. But that does not mean that you understand what you are reading. That's another ball game altogether. So decoding is not understanding. Don't get carried away by the decoding skills of your pre-primary child and not test the understanding. The second bit that you've got there is comprehension, which means, have you understood what you read? The boy is playing. Now, if I stop the child and say, what is playing? The child needs to tell me, give me an example of playing. He needs to say running, jumping, something, or at least he needs to show me the action. Then I know he's understood. A lot of children have not comprehended or not understood the text. They are reading, but not understood. It's a very curious thing. However, when you understand, so when you comprehend, and you must comprehend at speed. So I must read very quickly. I cannot read very slowly. If I am learning in some way where I am spelling the word and then sounding out the word, I am extremely slow. If I am very slow in my decoding, speed gets affected. When speed gets affected, I cannot understand what I have read, because after I read 2 lines, I have forgotten the third line. In the third line, I have forgotten the first line. So it goes like that. It goes into forgetting and then I don't understand. So written comprehension will become a problem. Okay. Spoken comprehension will be fine, because as long as I know the meanings of the words and I know the language. But otherwise, this will affect you in the 3rd and 4th standard where you have a written comprehension. Not because you can't read. Of course you can read, you can decode, but you do not understand what you have read and you are not reading at speed. So there are 2 things, understanding and speed. Then in reading we start inferring. Now as we go up, we look at character, we look at plot, we think about why is it that person said that, what was their intention, etc. So now we are inferring. We look at people's clothes and say they are rich or they are poor. Now this is common sense. It's not as if you can't do it in the pre-primary, you can. So if you've got a man with a patched shirt and he's barefoot and his trousers are torn and his hat looks old. Even a small child, if you ask the child, do you think this man has a lot of money or he has no money? The child will be able to tell you. That's inference. Nobody has told you that the man is poor, but you've inferred it. So inference is reading between the lines. And then you get into intention and mood. Why has the person written what he has written? Remember, somebody else has written it. What was his intention? Is he trying to influence me? Is he trying to do all these things? When we come here, I'll show you the number of things that people do. When they make you read what they have written, they have an intention. What is it? What is the mood? Has he created a dark mood? Has he created a mood where you are scared of something? So the mood is very important. He or she, okay? Connotations, allusions, symbols, motives. So writers will put all kinds of things in order to influence you. So suppose they are putting a strong religious symbol into their book. If you belong to that religion, you are likely to be influenced by what this person is saying. You are likely to think that some people are good and some people are suspicious. These are natural. So that is what the writers will do, and you learn to read it. An educated person learns to see through. A gullible person who is not very well educated will believe everything that is told to him. That's the difference, or her. And then we come to critical reading. Critical reader is a good reader. As I said, somebody who will think, somebody who will ask questions, somebody who will connect things and see whether, did he say the same thing then? Or he said something, he's doing something else. You'll start asking questions, you'll start comparing and contrasting. See, compare and contrast, not just with the characters in the story, but also outside with other books and other themes and things like that. You're getting into the realm of literature here. See, this is literature. Then you evaluate whether the message is good, whether the theme is good, whether the writer has done a successful job, etc. And then you make life links. You ask, how has this reading affected me? How has it changed my life? What did I learn from this? Or what should I be doing now with a certain relationship because I have seen the light? It could be anything. It could be even disgust. I'm not saying it should all be positive. But you start making life links, you start evaluating, which is your highest goal, right? But you cannot evaluate if you don't compare, contrast, infer, ask questions, think. You cannot. So this is your reading journey. Receptive, but very active as far as thinking is concerned. Just as here you became sophisticated, here you need to become very sophisticated. If you just write question and answers on the story, what did he do, where did he go, what did his mother think, etc., it's not going to make you this critical reader. And finally, we come to writing. Writing is one of the highest skills because it's generative. You are generating language. You are writing your thoughts. And all that this writer was trying to do, now you are doing to somebody else who's going to read you. It could be your teacher, you could be writing a book, you could be writing a paper, you could be writing a presentation, you could be writing anything. But essentially, again, you need ideas, you need structure, you need vocabulary. You find everywhere you need this. So these are some of your key areas. These are some of the pegs on which language is, holding for you. And then you have purpose. Then you have the genre. How are you writing? Are you writing a letter? Are you writing a book? Are you writing a propaganda material? Are you doing an advertisement? What are you writing? And depending upon what you choose to write, there are certain features that you will follow for that. Okay? And then of course the mood and the style and all of these that I told you in reading will happen in writing. Do you see how they are just two sides of the same coin? So if you're a good reader, you're a critical reader, it influences the way you write because you picked up a lot of tips from your reading. So when they say you must read plenty of books, trust me, it doesn't mean just go and consume half the library without thinking, because it's a waste. It's like decoding. Reading a lot without knowing what it means. It will go like that. If you critically think and if you read, you don't have to read thousands of books. What you will find is your ideas are influenced by the richness of the minds of so many writers. And therefore, genre features mood, style and the purpose. Why are you writing? Are you writing to influence, persuade, negotiate, provoke, inspire, threaten, cajole, caution, reject? There are more. So many intentions, so many needs for me to influence somebody. When I read, I should recognize this, and when I write, I should intend this. Then my education is complete. And finally, you will find things like euphemisms. You will find things like subliminal messages. These are all highly sophisticated tools by which people try to influence you without actually saying something directly and showing their hand, so to speak, right? So, subliminal messages, propaganda, material, advertisements. Language then, my dear friends, becomes a weapon. That is where language becomes a weapon. The pen, they say, is mightier than the sword. It's not for nothing. It is indeed mightier than the sword, but only if you go into the skills area of language rather than becoming slave to content. So from tomorrow onwards, I hope you start thinking of skills rather than content. If you need help, there's Writing with Ease, and there are my language books in which we have grammar and vocabulary and oral language and writing all together for 10 minutes. So take a look at some of those videos also, but change the way you do English so that we weaponize language. We don't keep it in a place where it is a subject that is such a pain. We don't want that. We want to be powerful with language. Till I meet you again, keep smiling.